What's going on YouTube? Kronos here and welcome back to the PSO2 video. So today's video is going to be the, I don't want to say counterpart, more so like the companion to our weapons progression video. We're going to be doing a quick little units progression video. This one should be a bit easier, a bit simpler, kind of a bit more straightforward. And this one is going to be a little bit more nuanced. Some people have a lot of differing opinions on what you should be going for, so on and so forth, depending upon your classes, but in reality, it shouldn't be too terribly complicated. Reality speaking, we have a lot available to us, and the market board does help out quite a bit when it comes to these choices. So we're just going to kind of speed through this a little bit, talk about what you can be looking for, how to not completely get blown up when you're doing content, and how not to waste a ton of money trying to upgrade things consistently. It's actually one of the things I see people making a big mistake on, even now at end game, is consistently trying to upgrade their gear. Whether or not it's they're affixing every other day, whether or not they're upgrading their gear every other day, changing their gear every other day, when in reality, you're only making small, minute changes. It's not going to make a huge difference on how you play the game itself. Reality speaking, you could just sit with what you have until something else comes up that is better, or that's going to be better for you. That's the idea behind this video today, is to kind of give you guys an idea of what you should be pushing towards and how not to waste a ton of money, a ton of resources on something that you're not going to hold on to for a very long amount of time. So let's get started, guys. Anyway, as always, we're on the ARC's Visiphone website. I'm going to leave a link in the video description to here. Well, specifically to here, the units section here. But in case you're someone who wants to do this process on your own, you want to figure it out, or you just need, you're already here. Simple, we hit equipment and we just click on units and it takes us right over to that spot. Actually, we'll just do it and show you guys exactly what it looks like. Bam, we're already here. Look at that. So you can see back, arm and leg units, subunits, and set effects. We're going to talk about a little bit of everything here while we're going on. So we're actually going to jump into subunits first. I did forget. It's probably one of the first set of units that you're going to get. So if you're just starting the game out, you haven't really gotten anything. My first recommendation for you is make your first character, go through everything that it's asking you to go through. You're going to end up coming to a point where it's going to ask you to do a coffee client order. Go talk to coffee, do the client order itself, and you're going to get a hold of a specific unit. A sub barrier is what we call them. The first one, it's a 7-star sub barrier. It's not super powerful. I think actually, where is it? Is it this one here? Yeah, no, it's for this one right here. So yeah, it's from Coffee here. Not super powerful. It does give you a bit of HP. They do have decent augments on them already usually, so I highly recommend going ahead and just picking up your sub weapon barrier. It's fairly useful. And the cool thing about it is, by default, the game gives you 3 character slots, meaning you can actually make 3 characters, do this 3 times, get a full set of sub barriers. From there, all you need to do is go ahead and upgrade them. As far as upgrading goes, just head over to the shopping area. When you get to the shopping area, and go and talk to either Dudu or Monica. They'll have an option for you to upgrade, and you just spam it till it's plus 10. It's going to cost you a bit of money. Not a huge deal. If you don't have the money for it just yet, upgrade them to what you can upgrade them to, but ultimately just get them to plus 10. It's not going to be too expensive to do. But that's really about it. That's basically going to be your start for your gear itself, very, very, very early on. So you're going to go through your missions. You're going to be, completing some quests, getting your main missions done as to the best of your ability, upgrading your weapons as we go along, like we talked about beforehand. But from there, move on to our next weapon, or next set of units. Now these ones, you can pick these ones up as early as you can afford to, in my opinion. Maybe you have a couple of friends who are already playing the game. They grab these for you from the get-go. Maybe you've made a bit of money off the rip. You grab those as well. You can get these. At the time I recorded this video, to be honest, these units were very cheap. I mean, I want to say maybe between 5 to 15k per unit. And they've got a pretty solid set bonus. They give you some damage and you get some PP. So something they don't get very much of early on. Pretty solid units to get. Sometimes you'll luck out and people will have some pretty good affixes on these already. Keep in mind, these units themselves also come with their own stats too. You're getting 40 HP and 5 PP from them. So in reality, what you're actually getting by using all 3 of these units together, 5, 10, 15, plus an extra 10, so 25 PP and 40, 80, 120 HP. Did I calculate that right? Yeah, 40, 80, 120 HP and 60 all attack. So pretty solid units to start out with. Honestly, I know some people that would have sat with these the entire way through until they got to their end game units, and would be perfectly fine. Again, get these to plus 10, use them. Perfectly fine units to pick up. Super great set of units moving on. But we're gonna blast past that onto our next options. Also, I mean, these might be fairly cheap, but they are useful. But only look at many of these sets if they're really, really, really cheap. If they're expensive, don't even think about them. Honestly, I wouldn't even pay it. I wouldn't give them like the light of day. I wouldn't even check to see how much these are. They're probably really cheap now because you can get them very, very easily. But like, In all reality, it's just not really worth it, unless you happen to find like a gold mine of someone selling these that have really good augments on them that that will give you some really good stats. Like maybe someone's just getting rid of a set, or maybe your friend happens to have them left over and like, hey, look, you can use these. Perfect, awesome, go ahead and go for it. But other than that, I would just ignore them for the most part. Now we're gonna head back over to sub barriers, because at a certain point you're gonna reach a spot that's going to give you a sub barrier. So you're gonna get sub barriers 12 stars for just a title reward. Now I don't remember the title reward offhand. If someone in the video, if someone does remember it, I will try to toss in the video description off of the comments, or hide the comment to bring it up to the top. But if you're just doing your standard missions, eventually you get to a point where you're gonna get a hold of some sub barriers. You'll get a set of them, so you will get 3 total, and they have some pretty decent augments. You got Allies to Soul, Mastery 3, Stamina 3, Spirit 3, as well as Vinculum. Pretty solid units. Nothing to write home about, but nothing not a bad unit itself to have. So you hold on to these, use these, and you'll be good to go. Again, like is the case with every set of units you get them plus 10, because you want their maxed out stats. It's not going to give you more attack stat, but it's going to give you good defense stats. Good stuff. Anyway, let's keep going. So pop back over to units themselves. So units, a lot of these are mostly skippable. Reality, not really worried about any of these things really until you hit about, I would personally say, the 13-star range. The last set of stars you're going to be getting. So a lot of these units are fairly powerful. There are a lot of really good choices here. And most of this is going to be get what you can get your hands on. Don't worry too much about exactly getting the right unit just yet. So at the time we're making this video, it is again the 1st of March. If you watch the weapon progression video, we have the looming thought that we might be getting a new set of gear coming up fairly soon. Now we actually technically already have it at the moment. It's the class units. And the class units are extremely powerful, but right now we can only get one. We cannot get the full set. However, soon we'll be getting an update that will allow us to get the rest of these units, to get what we need to be able to pick up the full set of these units. These are basically going to be our end goal, but we're going to talk about the other options we have available to us as we go along. So you can luck out doing some content at endgame and pick up things like the Grudge unit, fairly powerful back unit, fairly strong when it comes to attack. Things like the Orb unit, that'll give you a great PP economy. The Dusk unit, again, pretty much the same thing as the Orb unit. I'm not sure why these are separated, but hey, there you go. But one of the ones that are actually really crazy, ends up being really good for you, if you happen to pick up a Rainbow Key while you're leveling and you do these Rainbow Keys, these Chevelle units drop. They're not bad units, they're pretty solid units. The thing about them is they drop with a crazy high amount of affixes on them most of the time if you're doing these from the Rainbow Keys. And they usually are pretty solid affixes. In reality, what you can do is if you're doing these Rainbow Keys at any point in time, like say you happen to start playing and you get a hold of a Rainbow Key, it's got a ton of affixes on it. You can just use this unit, plus 10 it, and then hold on to it until you get something better, until you're affixing on your own. Very, very strong choice. Very, very powerful set of units. So, and when I say powerful with the thought process of cost to power ratio. You're not really having to put anything into these units for them to be good. They're already going to be solid when you get the hold of them, as long as you get them from the Rainbow Key. Anywhere else, they're probably going to be low on the slottage, so your mileage may vary, but I would keep that in mind. And then the rest of this is going to be personal preference based on the content you do. You've got novel units. Novel units upgrade into these Rivolate units. I'm not sure why they're this order specifically on the wiki. Who knows? Either way. Novel, very powerful from the defensive standpoint, high HP, low PP unfortunately, but decent attack. Upgrade into Rivolate, you sacrifice that HP for more PP and more attack. The biggest thing though is that the cost of upgrading these into Rivolates can be fairly expensive, so I wouldn't recommend that for the average player. So from there, really, you have a lot of different choices you can make depending upon the content you're doing. Say you're someone who's farming a ton of Luther, or I guess I want to say Luther, but basically it's Omega Luther, UH Omega Luther. You can use these Atlas units. Atlas units are actually fairly powerful units, however, they're a bit weaker on the defensive side, only offering you 4% of the main stats. Kind of similar to Rivolate in a sense here. Honestly, I didn't realize Rivolate was hurt in the same way that Atlas does. It actually explains quite a bit about my JP character, but we'll talk about that later. Either way, these are fairly strong unit choices, fairly high on the HP, fairly high on the damage, a little bit lower on the PP, but you have to have trade-offs here and there. So these units are pretty good, and they actually will be useful in combination setups later. Say you're someone who is just looking for like a good all-rounder unit. You really want to deal with, low anything really. Trailblazer is a good option overall. Trailblazer gives you quite a bit of HP, quite a bit of PP, and quite a bit of main stat, as well as having good overall statage. You guys will have to forgive if you notice a couple of random cuts in here. It is starting to get a bit more warm in my part of the world, and fortunately I can't record with my door open too often. It's going to be kind of bad. So sitting in a cooped up room, things are quiet, but it's starting to get hot very quickly. So let's get this taken care of. We're talking about Trailblazer. Trailblazer is a good all-arounder, honestly, for basically all of your slots. It's decent PP, decent HP, and decent all stats. So, and decent resistances. Basically, you really can't go wrong with Trailblazer. If you're doing the content for it, really useful. Let's say, for example, you're someone who's farming up the materials you're going to need for Guardian Soul later down the line. You need Reveries to make Mana Reverie. You'll be doing tons of UH Persona, meaning you'll be doing tons of content that's going to get you these units. So very, very powerful. And UH Persona actually drops these units too. So if you happen to be just doing that content because maybe you're helping out a friend, maybe you are trying to level up yourself while there's boosts going on, so you might be able to get hold of these units. I actually kind of do slightly regret moving away from these units, to be honest. I do like my higher attack units, but I'm noticing a pretty substantial amount of extra damage taken when I'm playing classes that are not at 12 basically, or sub at 12, and it hurts. So really, really good units here. The offset units aren't a bad choice. They are pretty solid defensively, but I don't think it's really necessary personally. As easy as it is to get Trailblazer units nowadays, I kind of just completely look away from these units. They do have a pretty solid setup though, so if you happen to have them already, they're not a bad choice. And then of course it comes all the way down to what we're actually going after, the clause units. So they're called Crass over on JP, clause on Global, naming scheme aside, different sets of these units, or basically different parts of these units, have different effects or different uses. We're actually going to go ahead and do this really quick so you guys can see the other two sets of units. Cool. So the back unit gives you a fair amount of damage, 120 all attack, very, very nice. 15 PP is still nothing to sneeze at. That's actually fairly good, but only 70 HP, a little bit lower on the HP end to make up for what the other unit pieces offer you. So this is pretty much a no-brainer. You're always going to go after the back unit. I don't think there's anyone who really doesn't want this back unit itself. That's like, hey, I want to skimp out on extra damage. Unless you're going for like a very specific setup, like I don't say a meme build, but like a very specific setup build, maybe something that's a little bit higher on the defensive side, you'll go for something else. Maybe you care more about PP, like you need to get a specific PP breakpoint to be able to do damage. You might opt to go to something like the Dusk units. However, again, I can't foresee a situation where you wouldn't want these. They're very good in a lot of spaces resistance-wise. They're good in main stat, as well as they have decent over in HP and PP. So let's hop over to the back unit. So the arm unit. The arm unit is the defensive monster. So with a whopping 220 PP as what you get from here. You've got fairly good resistances, decent main stat. Actually, it's kind of low on the low end of main stat that you get from this. Even at 60, that's still fairly decent. And 15 PP. Again, middling point of PP is still very useful. And again, this is to offset what the leg unit gives you. So pop over to the leg unit, and the leg unit is going to give you a massive 30 PP and still going to get you 80 all attack. So this is fairly high on the actual all attack and PP range, but it does have a very low 40 HP. So if you're someone or a class that decides that, you know what, maybe I want more HP, I don't care as much about PP, main stat is perfectly aside, if I don't survive, I'm not going to be able to do any damage. Maybe I'll opt to go something like Novel Legs. I know some situations fighters will take the Crass back as well as the arm, but opt to go with Novel Legs instead for a bit more, HP juice, and they don't need the extra PP because, they're already fairly PP efficient while they're in limit break. They may opt to do something like a Novel Leg instead as that option available to you. But that's something you can keep in mind for these other units we talked about, things like the Trailblazer, things like the Atlas. If say, you're going for something that's more damaging, you don't need any extra, the extra PP in the situation itself or the damage, you can go and opt to swap these in. But going all three Crass or all three claws, some people argue at all times is your best choice. And I'm not really against them in that situation. If you want to min-max it a little bit more, you can, but choosing all three then be kind of one of your best bets across almost every other class. So like say if you want to play something else, moving in NGS, these will be fairly useful for your very early on leveling choices. But that's really about it, guys. Not really too much to talk about here. There's not a whole lot of argument that usually happens in these situations itself. It happens to be a lot of what you just happen to have access to, what you can use, and what's going to be beneficial for you. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to toss them into the comments below. A like on the video is much appreciated and absolves you of half your ad block guilt. The other half is all by subscribing. Both are totally free and they do help me out a ton. If you want to keep up with the content as it goes live, make sure to click on the bell icon to be notified of videos as well as community posts, or join us over on Discord or follow me on Twitter for notifications via those two avenues, or those ways of interacting with me. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Peace out.